Welcome to part 0 of the OSU Storyboarding Guide. This episode will focus on the very basics of storyboarding and introducing you to the editor. If you already know what the storyboarding is and how to storyboard, feel free to skip this video, although watching it may help you figure out some additional information too, so feel free to stick around. So what is a storyboard? A storyboard can be treated as an animated background for OSU maps that, unlike videos, can be made in OSU itself. By adding images to your maps folder, you're able to insert those images inside the game's engine and change their appearance like a video editor. Although OSU does have a storyboard editor implemented, it's quite outdated and doesn't provide all the features. For that, you'll need to script, which we'll learn in future episodes. For the time being, we'll learn the bare bones of storyboarding. Before storyboarding, let's learn two key concepts: layers and keyframes. In storyboards, you can have multiple different images at the same time, and some overlap and cover other ones using the layer system. Each image is sorted in order from lowest priority to highest priority. The higher the priority is, the more the image will cover other ones. In OSU, each image has its own priority level. There are also 5 macro layers that dictate a group's priority. These layers are called main layers, and they are background, veil, pass, foreground, and overlay. Every main layer has its own priority as well, so every image in the background layer will always show up below the foreground layer. We will cover some of these layers in future episodes. All you have to know is that images will never cover the gameplay unless they're on the overlay layer. Also, if you've used layers in anything design related, this order may come off as weird, but the bottom to top priority is how OSU does it, sadly. In storyboarding, a keyframe is a point in time used to indicate the beginning or end of a change. By setting 2 keyframes and warping the image, which can be done by moving, rotating, or fading it, you'll be able to create a starting and ending movement from the 2 frames, making the image go from the first frame to the second frame seamlessly. For example, in the first keyframe at 0 seconds here, we have a tiny square. If we add another keyframe at 1 second and make the square bigger, we can notice that by playing the animation, the square goes from keyframe 1 to keyframe 2. Although we didn't animate all the frames, those frames in the middle, also called in-betweens, are made to create a smooth transition between the second keyframe. Storyboards fully operate in keyframes, and you can put multiple keyframes per image too. Now that we know the key components of storyboarding, let's go over the editor. To find the editor, go to the Edit tab, then press the map you want to storyboard. When you're in the editor, go to the Design tab by pressing F2. Note that Laser does not have a storyboard editor yet, so everything has to be made in stable. Also note that for storyboards, it's highly recommended to have the song properly timed, as it will be very useful later on. When you're in the design editor, there are 2 things to do before we start. 1. Check on the top left that the video and storyboard are toggled on, and go to the song setup in the design area and toggle widescreen support, so your storyboard goes from the default 4:3 ratio to the 16:9 ratio. If you want your storyboard to be 4:3, you can skip a step. In this video, we're simply going to familiarize with the core mechanics of the editor without actually committing to a storyboard. That will be taught in part 1 of the series. First, let's insert an image in the map to appear in the storyboard. If you want to put a custom image in your storyboard, open the map folder and drag the image you want inside. In the map folder, you're able to create subfolders to organize your images better. For example, it's common practice to create a folder called SB and insert all your storyboard images in there. When using images, make sure the images you select are either JPEG or PNG, as any other format won't show properly. Also, make sure that the images are named with English characters, as OSU won't be able to recognize most Unicodes. Now that you have your image inside your folder, go back to the editor and open the sprite library on the bottom, or press I. In this menu, you will be able to see all the images in the map folder, including the background. Click on the image you want and it will appear in the storyboard. When an image is inside a storyboard, it's defined as object or sprite, so that's what we'll be calling it from now on. Another important thing to mention is that when you make changes to your storyboard, OSU doesn't detect storyboard modification as actual changes, resulting in a lot of lost progress if you accidentally press escape. This is why it's very important to frequently save your maps as your storyboard changes get saved too. When your sprite is in the editor, we will see a change in the top right. This is the object list. In here, you'll be able to see all the current sprites you've put in your storyboard, organized in the 5 main layers. The lower your sprite is, the higher the priority. So when you put a sprite for the first time, its default position is in the foreground layer on the top of everything. To change its layer, you can hold the name of your sprite and drag it up or down, depending on where you want it. Since you can have multiple sprites using the same image, make sure you drag the right sprite by double clicking on the name. That will select the sprite, highlight it, and change the timing. We aren't going in depth in each section of the editor yet, but we will briefly go over them. These are the layer toggles. By toggling these on and off, you'll be able to hide and show the main layers. Note that hiding them like this won't actually hide them in gameplay. These are the transformations. When selecting one of them, you can create a command in a keyframe. These are the easings. When selecting one of them, they change the pace of the speed in a command. These are the origins. Selecting a different origin will change the anchor point of the image. Selecting diff specific will make your sprite appear only in that difficulty selected and will disappear in any other difficulties. An important section we will cover in this part is the keyframe control panel. Here, you'll be able to add, remove, and snap from a keyframe to another. If you scroll away from your sprite in a timeline, you'll notice that your sprite will disappear. That's because there are no further keyframes present in that sprite, which will lead to the image disabling itself. If you don't want it to disappear, scroll to a different timing point and hit the plus on the keyframe control to add a new keyframe. That way, a new keyframe will be made at that point in time, and the sprite will now show up from the first keyframe up until your new keyframe, or vice versa if you scroll down instead. On the top of the screen, you'll be able to see the transformation timeline. By double-clicking on your sprite with 2 keyframes, you'll be able to see colored lines indicating a parameter change in progress. The white ends of the line indicate your starting and ending keyframe positions, which you can snap by using these buttons. Remember that before and after those keyframes, the sprite will not be present. This part was only an introduction to storyboarding, so we're stopping here. If you want to learn how to properly utilize the editor, I suggest you watch part 1, which will be uploaded alongside part 0 for convenience. But for now, goodbye.